I'm Jim Collison, live from Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Thieves Thursday, Season 2, recorded on February 18th, 2016. Theme Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the CliftonStrengths Finder themes. One theme at a time, and today's theme is belief. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room that's available for you right below the main video window, and I do this for Adam. He likes it when I make this motion in the video. Down below the video window is our chat room. You don't have to create an account, just log in with the guest account. So click the login button, bottom left-hand corner, choose guest, and then put your name where it says guest 1234. It'll have some numbers in there. Click login and you can join us. Great to see your name, like we see guest 330. If you log back in with your name, we will know who you are and don't have to call you that awkward guest 330. If you're listening to the recorded version or you need custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, contact us. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. By the way, you can use that address for any questions that you might have. Maybe you're thinking about becoming a certified coach and you want some questions around that to be for the certification. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com, and just put certified, Gallup certified coach, or whatever in the subject line so we know where to route it. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center, just gallupstrengthscenter.com for all your coaching resources and training needs. You can also catch the video on both streaming and downloadable audio now for offline listening. There's no way you can't listen to this. I've made it available in every possible form. Everything you need to know is at the coach's blog, coaching.gallup.com. Maika Leibbrandt is our host today. She's a learning and development consultant with Gallup. And Maika, always great to have you. I forgot to give you the memo that it's Dress Up Thursday. I mentioned in the pre-show, never wore a tie on any of these webcasts we've ever done. Welcome to Theme Thursday.
I am humbled by your spiffy appearance and happy to be here.
Thank you. It is Gallup's annual awards. Every year we do year-end awards in February, and we get the whole company together over at the CenturyLink, which, by the way, that will be the location of our Strength Summit coming up July 18, 19, and 20. We are literally a week away from having a link where you can go out and get more information and sign up for that. At a minimum, block out those days, July 18, 19, and 20. We'll have more information here coming next week. Watch the Facebook group. Sorry to interrupt there. Keep going.
No, super exciting. It'll be great.
Yeah, so we're talking belief today, and I'm looking forward to this. I've mentioned it as number 2 for my wife. I thought it was 1, and she corrected me last night. No, Jim, discipline is number 1. We happen to have, I have it 34. She has it number 1, so you know how that goes. But belief is very high for her, and a Ranger last week is my number 1, so that was kind of through belief with you today.
Excellent, good. So let's dive into talking a little bit about belief. Hopefully this will help you, Jim, working with your wife.
My marriage.
Wearing a tie also helps sometimes. Make sure that you've downloaded our companion guides. We're going to be going through that just like we do every week. I also wanted to mention, since we're sort of clarifying any sort of expectations here, I heard a great shout out this week from a group of people who are following along with us every week and spending their lunch hour with us, and they said, you know what, I love what you're doing, but I don't have a whole hour. Could you do it shorter? And I told them about our Theme Thursday shorts, which I'm not sure they were aware of. So if this is too long for you, make sure you go back to our YouTube page and you can check out those Theme Thursday shorts that are just 8 to 10 minutes.
Can I say one additional thing on that with the shorts? We are translating them into every language that we can. The 8-minute versions, if you speak a language other than English and you'd like to help us get those translations in, there's some information on the Facebook group, or send me an email, jim_collison@gallup.com. We're taking a little bit of time trying to crowdsource it in a way and get those shorts in every language we can so that we can use those around the world. And we'll thank you in advance for your effort. Thanks, Maika.
Great. Now let's dive into belief. So if we're following along on that on the companion guide, you'll notice at the top our quick definition of it. So people exceptionally talented in this theme have certain core values that are unchanging, and out of these comes their purpose and the purpose that they follow for their lives. It's an executing theme, and quite honestly, that sort of tripped me up for a long time. I didn't understand how is purpose executing, and I think that's what sets belief apart from some other themes that might sound a little bit more similar. It's not just that you have great values, it's that your values are what drive you out the door, that you get things done from a place of value. So let's compare that to maybe a different executing theme to help you understand it. Responsibility, for example, gets things done because you committed to it. whereas belief gets things done because it comes from your core of what you value, what you espouse, what you hold to be very important. That's enough to drive outside of your core and into what you actually move out the door. So it is an executing theme. I think about the word values that are unchanging, if you want to super simplify that piece. It's been described as sort of an anchor, being something that's big and heavy and obvious. Not that those beliefs can't be changed, but if you're going to, you're really going to have to put in a lot of sweat and a lot of effort in order to change them. The beautiful thing about coaching people with belief is I've found typically people with belief can tell you what their beliefs are. We don't define at Gallup what these certain core values need to be. All we know around this theme is that it's set apart because of a certain set of core values that drive what you do and how you do it. Now, oftentimes I'll coach people who are disappointed that they don't have belief in their top 5 or their top 10 because they'll say, I have values. And I like to bring them back to, okay, tell me about some of your values. And there's a difference when you ask that question to somebody with belief versus somebody who doesn't have belief. And it doesn't mean that they have values or they don't. It's just that when you ask somebody with belief, they can usually tell you right away. And when you hit those values, when you do something to offend or honor them, it's like a spinal tap. They sort of, you understand that you've hit those values, they know that they've been hit, and it affects immediately the work that they're executing upon.
Awesome. Let's dig in a little bit when we think about, again, to the companion guide. We have these raw versus mature. Let's look at both sides of the equation.
Thanks, Jim. So raw versus mature, we have these themes when we're at our best, but there's no QA inside StrengthsFinder that says you're using these in a great way. All your Clifton StrengthsFinder results give you is your most natural patterns of behavior. And then it's up to coaches and helpful people to help you understand, are you using that behavior in a raw way or are you using it in a more mature way? Raw belief looks like opposition, whereas mature belief looks like being an advocate. And I mean that as, think about, this is interesting that we're in a political season right now. I think you could probably find lots of examples of this. Think about whether political candidates are talking incredibly passionately about what's wrong or talking incredibly passionately about what they're going to do or what is right or what needs to be furthered, what cause needs to get out the door. So in the raw place, you can spend a lot of time screaming, hey, that's not right. And in the mature place, you can start from there and say, here's what is right. Raw belief can be judgmental, very sort of closed, and understanding that, when you hit belief, again, use that spinal tap analogy. It's like hitting your spine. And so if you know that if somebody's going to offend your values, it's going to affect the way that you work, you can close down and get very judgmental and sort of guarded and separate yourself away from other people who might be of diverse opinion or might not share your values or may offend your values. The mature version of that is, rather than judgmental, being grounded, understanding here's where I come from, here's what I'm operating from, and understanding that might be different from other people, but it doesn't mean you have to change in order to accept them.
Maika, is there an element of encouragement in that when we think about, judgmental can be the negative approach to someone's behavior? Can that positive approach to someone's behavior also be kind of a mature role, or does that play out differently?
I think it certainly can. If judgmental is, hey, you're doing this wrong, and therefore you are wrong, the mature version of that is, hey, you might want to think about this a different way. And the ability to separate somebody's behavior from who they are as a person, I think, is probably mature belief. And being able to be sort of a lighthouse or Carol Ann, I saw your illustration this week included a lighthouse. I think that's a great picture for belief, because it is that ability to help other people see, hey, I'm grounded in these values. You might want to be grounded in some of them too, especially if you think about extrapolating belief into more of an organization-wide values proposition. I think people with high belief can be excellent stewards of organizational values by helping people stay grounded and stay sort of entrenched into what is right.
Kurt would always say he wanted everyone to love all 34 of these themes. This was, I think, one of those examples of how that maturity plays out, and not trying to isolate down to the top 5 or making one set of themes better than the other, but that we would love all 34. Do you see that playing out that way?
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you love? So here's what I think you can love about belief. I think you can love the stability that it brings. I think we need to love the guidance that it brings. I think we need to love people with belief because it brings such a beauty and a transparency that isn't focused on what you've done. There's something about belief that isn't necessarily about merit. It's about, I think, altruism and grace, and very oftentimes high belief has something to do with others. And I think that it's a very others-focused theme in that way. Typically, you'll find people with high belief have some sort of an idea or a value that has something to do with service. Maybe that's family values, maybe that's community, maybe that's how people should be treated in sort of an advocacy way or a diplomatic way. It tends to be about others rather than just about, hey, here's what's right for me. And I think that's a beautiful piece. That's certainly something to fall in love with.
Yeah, in season 1, Tim Hodges, who we had on, talked about belief being that anchor. You mentioned it in the opening here a little bit. What I really appreciate about that metaphor of the anchor is an anchor is something that can drag you down if you think of it in its negative, immature term, or it's something that can hold you in place in the midst of a storm. I love that analogy between the two. What else would you add to that that idea of that raw and mature in the anchor metaphor?
I think there's the importance of understanding what that anchor is. So probably you can take belief from raw to mature by practicing giving some voice to what are those values. I will never forget consulting with a sorority at one point, and there were a lot of things that we deal with is building relationships. And there were these specific 2 roommates within the sorority who both had belief in their top 5, and they could not get along. They could not trust each other. They could not get over that level of frustration they had with each other, and they both had belief. The interesting thing was, once they got some open dialogue about talking what their values were, they realized they weren't that different. It's just that one of them had beliefs that centered around some very black and white ways of what is right in the world, and the other one was grounded in this belief that there is no such thing as black and white. And if they hadn't gotten to a point where they could talk about what those values were and why they were important to them, I think it remained in this sort of mystery. So if you come back to that anchor analogy, very often if you're on the surface in another boat, you don't know which boats have an anchor on them, and you don't know how deep that goes, and you don't know what it looks like. So I think to follow that metaphor, I think it's important to realize, okay, what is your anchor, and how do you get it out of yourself? Because belief doesn't necessarily need to preach. It's not an influencing theme. It's about how do my values affect the way that I work and the way I execute. So one thing that I like to help people add to their belief to really utilize it in a mature way is, how do you give some voice to it? How do you explain what it is in a way that helps other people understand where you're coming from and helps set you up for being a little bit more of that lighthouse, that person who can offer that guidance. That first step really is getting it out and helping others describe what it is. Yeah,
no, that's good. What else do we want to talk about with raw versus mature?
Let me take a look. I think that sometimes raw if you think about what have people been told who have belief, very often they'll say, you know what, people always tell me I'm stuck in my ways, that I tend to be a little bit old-fashioned. And I think the mature version of that is being comfortable with challenge. You can know who you are, and you can get stuck in that and not want to be open to anything else, or you can know who you are and use that as a reason that you're okay being challenged. And mature belief understands what those values are, understands what's going to change and what's not going to, and that makes it okay for them to discuss other things, work in other ways, work with other people who might not share their same values.
I love that phrase that you said, okay by being challenged, because that is often, when we think about the immature, it's like, no, I believe this, I believe it no matter what, I'll go to the wall for it, and it's making those decisions on what are those? You also said core values, right? It's so driven by a value proposition of what do I value and what do I hold true, and it seems to me as that matures, there's maybe less things they hold to even stronger, but knowing when to fight and when not to, and then how that affects people. Can you react to that a little bit? Because there's one of those kinds of things, there's people who fight for everything, and then as they mature, they begin to fight for the right stuff. Am I right in that?
I think so. There's certainly an element of choose your battles with belief. But values are different than priorities. Priorities are what you do. Values drive what you do. They're the reason that you do it. So maybe the maturing part is looking for ways that your belief has led to some effective work. People with high belief, again, it's not preaching. You don't have to make other people believe what you believe in order for them to still be values. But I would look for opportunities when you sharing your values has gotten you somewhere. Or also be aware of what are going to be those red flags that are abrasive to your own values. And are there reasons that you need to go there? Because you will go to the wall for them if your values are offended and you have belief. You might not always have to be going to every wall. And that, for somebody with belief, doesn't mean, hey, let it go. It probably more likely means don't get yourself in that situation in the first place.
No. Very good. Let's think about complementary themes. And I know we say every week, every theme can be complementary. We've picked out a few. Maika, walk us through a few of those.
Yeah, I picked out a few just thinking about how might a partnership really affect belief. And Jim, now that I'm realizing this, I should have picked all of yours, and it would have been a little bit of help for you and Sarah there. But sorry, I didn't.
Might have been, yes.
The first thing that came to mind for me was futuristic. So there is a danger and a vulnerability with belief to be wanting to do the same type of work over and over again because you find a comfort in in places that live out your mission. So people with high belief are drawn to work that helps them capitalize on those values. That can make it a little bit difficult to think about how things might change or how things might look in the future. So partnering with somebody with high futuristic, what they can bring is a vision to help you see, okay, where might your values land through change? Where might your values land through differences? Where might your values land that might expand your effectiveness more than just what you're experiencing right now? On the other end, I also thought about how great a complementary partnership could be with context. So what context could bring to belief is depth of those values, maybe credibility, or adding a story to those values, so helping you see, okay, where does this come from? Where has it worked in the past? And maybe even, what does history tell us about this sort of mission, the effect of the values, bringing again back to the altruism that exists typically within belief. I think context can expand on that and help other people understand the importance of it. And the other piece I thought about was the complement of somebody with high empathy and somebody with high belief. So what belief is going to have a radar for is mission, purpose, values. What empathy will have a radar for is other people's reaction to that. So somebody with high empathy could help alert you to people who might be great beneficiaries of your values, could also alert you to people who might be rubbed the wrong way by your values.
No, very good. What about, when we get this question all the time, likely and unlikely pairs, when we think about this? And with belief, I'm excited to hear these. So let's roll through them.
Great. So the most likely theme to show up in somebody's top 5 with belief is responsibility. Responsibility is about doing something because you've committed to someone else. So again, it's an others focus within responsibility. Just like this belief, those values tend to be about others. So I think it makes sense that they land together. I think about responsibility and belief, having them both in your top 5 probably makes you a steward, both in deed, in what you're doing, and in your mission.
Keep going.
Unlikely pairs. Yes. There's 3 of them. So there's quite a bit of work here. Good thing you're wearing a tie for this because we are working hard now, Jim. There are 3 that are all tied at 0.02. So 2% of the time, these three all show up with belief. They're least likely. The first one is significance. And I think about belief and significance, it makes sense that they don't show up together quite a lot because significance finds mission in the work, and belief finds work that lives out the mission. They might look very similar in the outcome. You might not be able to tell whether somebody has belief or significance, but it makes sense that they're sort of unlikely. The second one is focus. And I think about the passion and intensity that you find with belief, you probably also find with focus. However, with belief, it's intensity and passion in the purpose, whereas with focus, it's intensity and passion on the task itself. And the third that ties here for least likely is command. Interestingly enough, we were just talking in the pre-show about belief and command, and I think the difference here is belief is I'll do something, and command is more influencing, so we need to do something. Belief, my values will drive me to execute. Command, if it's not right, we will get to it. I will make a bigger splash about how I get something done. If you had them both, belief and command, it probably looks like, hey, this is right, and we're going to do something about it.
Yeah, no, that's good. And actually, if you go back to season 1 of Belief, Kelly is on there, and we just talked about that today. I was talking to her about that down in the lunchroom, and she does. She honestly believes, like, she's got high, like, we need to do this because it's right, and if it's being done wrong, I'm going to do something about it. Right? That's kind of that action of command, taking charge in it, and that high belief in doing things right. Lori puts an interesting question, and we've kind of touched on this without specifically saying this, but Maika, when we think about ways of development, right? So we have these themes, we see them in our top 5, and then we think about how we go about developing these, right? They don't automatically, we're not superstars automatically in them. They need to continue to be cultivated and worked. When we think about belief, what are some coaching things we can think about? How can they develop that to a more mature state, specifically in some of those areas?
So I like to always think about what is every theme fueled by, and what does it hunger for? So what does it need? Belief is fueled by what is right. We don't define what that is within the definition. So the first thing you really need to do if you're coaching somebody with belief is land on, for them, what is right and wrong. And help them embrace the fact that understanding of what is right and what is wrong drives what they do. Help them name it. So it's not just about name your theme at that point. It's about name your value within belief. What belief hungers for is progress toward a value-driven goal. So if you have high belief, put yourself in a place where you understand what is expected and why it's expected. So I would think, if I had belief and I was given a task, one of the habits I should get into is maybe asking for or looking for the effect that is going to happen once I achieve that task. So, and I don't just want to know if we sell 100 widgets, our stock price is going to go up. It might be better for somebody with high belief to say, okay, how is that going to drive forward our mission? How does this tie into what we do? Within engagement, there's an important item on our Q12 that talks about the mission or purpose of my work. And so it's about not just whether you know the mission of your job or whether you can recite it or whether it's posted in your office, but do you see the connection between what you do every day and the mission that happens because of it? So helping align the work that you're doing with the mission that's happening, giving you some experience within that. So if you believe that you're affecting other people by doing the work you're doing, get out there with those people. Be a frontline responder for customers. Feed your belief, I think, by spending some time with seeing the residual effect that your values have. The other piece around how do you coach belief is probably a little bit more exploratory. So just help people explore any areas of alignment or misalignment. Where do your beliefs fit what you're doing and where do they not? So I think belief can understand other values without executing on other values. So it's not necessarily you're so closed-minded we need to bend you. It's let's just help you be aware of places that align with what you do and places that don't so that you can be a better sort of steward of your mission.
Micah, we have a deck of cards, value cards. I think we sell those on our Gallup, shop.gallup.com, our store. By the way, a place to go to get all our resources if you're interested. Would those cards be valuable when we think about? I just said values and valuable in the same sentence, but would those cards be and how would someone high with belief, working on that? How might they use a deck like that to kind of sort through those, and what's a little exercise they could do?
So the values cards are similar to some of our other sorting exercises where we ask people to pick, I think there's maybe 25 different values. And they're things like altruism, family, love, aesthetics, community, and basically anything that you could value. I think what it'll do is it'll speed up that conversation with someone with high belief about giving voice to their values. It's really going to be, I think it's going to be an attractive exercise for someone with belief. They may not need it on the same token. So if you're talking with somebody with belief, you might not have to have a card sort exercise for them to put voice to what they think is right and wrong. But I also think it could really help you understand where they come from. The neat thing about the card sort exercise is that you can choose, we ask you to sort to like the 5 most important values to you, and then which values are maybe a little bit more negotiable. And that's going to help you sort of explore that alignment and misalignment. It's not only for people with belief. I think it's a fantastic piece for anybody. In fact, I had a really great conversation with a good friend of mine this week who reminded me that strengths are how we operate, but values are what we operate on. Values are like why we show up. And so I really think values have to be a part of any strengths conversation.
No, it's good. I think it's a fundamental exercise we all should do, regardless of what our top 5 are, but it does help kind of sort. Carol Ann asked every week, we should just add this question in as a permanent question. What does it look like when we think about belief in a child? So at a very raw state from an age standpoint. Micah, what do you think as we look for those kinds of things? What would we look for with a child who has high belief?
The phrase, "that's not right." And this is just me in my experience with kids. There are some kids who say that and who sometimes shout that and who sometimes can't handle how uncomfortable they get when they know that something is right or isn't. So that's what I would look for in a child. And Carol Ann, within an educator, I think about some of the great teachers I had who could tell me very clearly why they were there and how we were going to use the information we were given. And I think sometimes belief can take on that sort of stability and transparency. In the same way, I would compare that to a great leader in any sort of organization, not just an educator, but that ability to very quickly provide some stability and predictability because of coming from an unchanging place.
Good insight. And just a reminder, those values cards, not just for belief. You can take a whole group and sort to that way. Very handy for coaches. A very handy way to start the conversation in a group. Put those cards out, let folks sort, and then talk about those values, like Maika, like you said, begin to speak about those values and the why. I think it could be potentially very powerful in the belief when someone is high in belief, because you can then talk to those values and separate some of those things out. But again, an exercise for anybody. Maika, when we think, what other thoughts or reflections do you have when we think about belief?
I think that there's probably, we haven't really talked about this, but belief is willing to sacrifice for something. And so if you think about really what makes it great, it's that willingness to, like you said, go to the wall. Belief is also willing to make sacrifices in order for that mission to live out. So if you're coaching someone with belief, I would maybe explore what sacrifices they have made and what sacrifices they're prepared to make, and then explore, what does it feel like when you sacrifice, and does it get you more or does it hold you back? Looking for any opportunities to open up those values so that other people can understand them, and align the work that you do with those values so that you can understand them even better.
Awesome. Any other thoughts before we dig into our weekly look at expanding your strengths and in theme dynamics? Any other thoughts, Maika?
I have no more thoughts. I'm all thought out.
You're all thought out on belief. Awesome. Let's dig in. I mentioned last week that I was not as diligent about making sure these slides were available to you full screen, and so let me actually get that going here. You'll see a little bit of behind the scenes to make sure this part is working. If just a reminder, these are available in our book, Expanding Your Strengths, and I can't talk and do this at the same time. There we go. You should be seeing full screen now of the app. This is a web app available in Expanding Your Strengths. We actually now available in both the UK and in Canada. We are still working with the Amazon markets in Australia as well as India. So hang tight, guys. It will come to you as well. Mike and I put out some options for you guys on Facebook to get access to or to influence in a way that you get to pick the themes each week. So you might want to stay in touch with us as we do that on our Facebook. We'll put belief in as number one. The very first one we want to talk about is responsibility. You can see I can go down and choose that. Hopefully you're seeing that full screen now. And let's take a look at belief and responsibility.
Great. So we talked about this a little bit because it is the most likely to show up. But you can see here from our app, Belief plus Responsibility, you make commitments to principles and purposes that are important to you. You also make commitments to people who ask for your help. Responsibility, I oftentimes talk about as to others, it looks like loyalty. It is an executing theme, and to people with responsibility, what they're hungering for is checking things off. But sometimes it comes across as loyalty because you do what you say, and you always do what you say. When you combine that with belief, it's you do what you say, and I know why. I know where you stand and how that you do what you say and you are who you say.
Okay, belief and connectedness.
Very cool. So in the development of StrengthsFinder, remember we didn't just come up with 34 different areas that your brain can behave. We really studied millions of people who were high performers, and then we worked backwards and said, how do they get there? So let's remember, especially with belief, your Clifton StrengthsFinder themes don't tell you what you do or don't do. They tell you how you do it. And so working backwards from these high performers, what we were attempting to do is identify the smallest number of themes that still could stand on their own and explain some talent of how these high performers used their talent. And at one point, belief and connectedness were actually combined into one theme, and that theme was called spirituality. We found that was a bit of a misleading theme because it sounds pretty religious, and it's not in the talent if you describe it that way. And we also found that we could separate these two because they do stand on their own. So we've talked about what belief is. Connectedness is this, I like to think about it as being really in touch with the ripples. So connectedness is about understanding that everything happens for a reason and helping people because of that understanding. So often, and it doesn't have to be spiritual, it doesn't have to be religious, but it is sort of comfort with the mystical. And this ability to sort of holistically understand that there is a greater purpose. So when you combine that with belief, it sounds like this. While your strong beliefs sometimes separate you from others, you still have a connection with and a compassion for all humanity. Another way that I'd put that is sort of this unchanging sense of calm. I think connectedness can bring a calmness in times of chaos because people with high connectedness are tapped into the understanding that chaos is happening for a reason.
Yeah, let's look at belief and relator. I think this is a powerful relationship one when you think, like, you want these people to be your friend.
Don't you? Yeah,
yes,
because they're always going to be your friend.
Again, yeah, I know, for sure.
Unchanging about belief. And so when I think about relator, it's about, it's commonly misunderstood, by the way, because it sounds like you're going out and you're relating all over the place. But really what relator is having a small group of really go-to trusted advisors and friends. And you go deeper in those relationships with you, and they feed you by having that small group. When you combine that with belief, it comes back to the core again. I think about your core friends with relator and your core values with belief. So together it looks like sort of being unchanging, being loyal. I think loyalty and groundedness is what I find with those two together.
Yeah, I think this is a powerful one in the context of an office relationship, where you have workers and coworkers in an office setting, and this person can be that relational kind of hub which everyone circles around. And so empowering that person to kind of set the values for the office or to make sure that birthday parties are getting celebrated right and those kinds of things can often be a very powerful key in finding these two together with that person. Let's also look at belief and learner.
Cool. So learner is a strategic thinking theme. It's about appreciating the journey to mastery. And learner, I think, always brings with it a certain amount of open-mindedness, because there's never you've never learned everything in the universe. If you've got high learner, there's always something out there that you can still understand. So I love what that brings to belief, because we talked about it being an anchor. Well, anchors don't stay in the same place forever. I think what learner brings to belief is a little bit more of curiosity, a little bit more open-mindedness, perhaps a little bit more willingness to adjust. And if you think about it this way, it says, while your mind is certain and unchanging about a few important matters, it remains curious and open about many other things. So when I was thinking about these two together, I was thinking about stable explorers.
That's a great analogy. One, we're going to do a bonus one this week because there was a lot of lobbying for harmony, belief in harmony in there, and it didn't make the top 4, but I just felt like we should bring it in. So let's talk about belief and harmony.
We like to do everything we can to reward lobbying. Let's just say that. If you bring passion, we will bring it.
We want to do it.
So harmony is about finding areas of consensus so that we can move forward. It is a relationship building theme, but what it hungers for more than anything is moving away, or not just away, but forward beyond conflict. And the way that harmony does that is it's got sort of a filter and a radar for where do we already agree. Let's not waste our time arguing if there are places we already agree. When you look at that with belief, it says your core values are solid but unchanging. When you work with people who have different beliefs than you strive for peaceful productivity. And productivity is a huge word there. So very often harmony, I think, gets misunderstood by, it comes across sometimes as smelling flowers and running through fields and hanging out in meadows. But really the truth of harmony is it's a laser beam. It is that ability to say, hey guys, we already agree over here, let's move forward there. So the productivity piece of harmony really brings out the values of belief, and it probably, belief probably speeds along that harmony because people already know where you stand. They don't have to spend time guessing, where might you agree and where might you not. To boil it down to 2 words, when I see these two together, I see a collaborative missionary.
Oh, that's good. I like that, collaborative missionary. Then belief, and we have command. We talked a little bit about this because this was Kelly's combo in the first season of when we did Theme Thursday. Let's just kind of go through it here for next week.
Yeah, so preview of next week, we're going to talk about command. Command is about, Carol Ann, you'll love this, it's the kid on the playground who everybody just listens to. Maybe because he's loud, maybe because he's charismatic, but there's something about him that brings presence. And command really is about presence. So when you bring that together with belief, it sounds like this. You are passionate and feel strongly about your values, and you don't hesitate to let others know your feelings or beliefs. This morning, love that beautiful picture of Kelly saying, hey guys, there are things that are right, there are things that are not right. And when things are wrong, we're going to do something about it. And at the same time, when things are right, we're going to do something about it and other people are going to know. So command is an influencing theme. And when we talk about influencing themes, typically we think about the ability to expand your reach of effectiveness beyond just the people you're working with. So people high in influencing can get the word out. They can persuade others. Command is a very persuasive theme. So when I look at these together, I see sort of a very persuasive contributor.
No, very cool. I'm excited about next week. We'll take a break, 1 week break after that, and just to warn you, there'll be a week off. Some of you will go, hey, where were you this week?
You'll be so sad. I will miss you.
We'll be taking a week off. I built those in intentionally so we could get a little bit of a break and take a Thursday off. I'll actually be getting some skiing in, which I'm pretty excited about, spending time with my son, so I'm excited about that. But I've put a link out in the chat room. This is the part of the program where we'd love you to have you join us live. You just need a webcam, a working webcam, and be able to log into the Hangout. It does require a Gmail account to get in, and so you'll have to set one of those up if you haven't done that. We do this every single week, and so here at the end of the program, if you want to jump in and join us, it looks like Abby is going to take the bait at this point, and hopefully we'll be able to see her, and she'll be able to hear us. Abby, can you hear us, and can we hear you?
I can hear you. Can
Good.
You hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome to Theme Thursday. Glad to have you in here.
Great.
Yeah. So we're hoping a great question from you. So let's dialogue a little bit. First of all, with belief, where does it land in your top 5? Maybe give us your top 5 if you have that available. And then where does it land for you, and maybe a question.
Yeah, belief is my number one. So it's belief, restorative, communication, discipline, and harmony.
And then how does it talk a little bit about your belief, and how does it, of all the things that we've talked about, what is lined up with you? What did you just identify with?
That's a good question. I've been furiously taking notes because that's what I do. And
Abby, hold on one sec.
of raw to mature.
We're losing you for just one sec. Hold on. I don't want to miss what you're saying, and we lost a little bit of your audio, so hang tight. Can you hear me now? Oh, it's always. Maika, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. I didn't lose you. Abby, can you hear us? One of the dangers of doing live calls, Maika, is that these kinds of things happen.
You say danger, I say excitement.
Yes, I like it. I like it. You know me, I'll do anything to get folks on here, so we continue to work. Abby, if you can hear us, refresh. So go in, just close out, come back into the call, and we'll try and get you back in. The other thing you can do here is if you don't have the right bandwidth, you can lower your bandwidth up. There's a toolbar in Hangouts right up here in the top. And there'll be.
It only shows up if you hover.
You got to hover over the top. Yeah, take your mouse, hover over the top. There's some bars that look like your cell phone, and there's a meter you can drag down, and that'll often help get us some better bandwidth from that standpoint. So we'll see if we can get Abby back in. Great to hear. This is what we're looking for, is somebody with it in their number one to be able to jump in here, and we can hear from them. Got an open seat if you want to jump in as we wait for Abby to maybe refresh and jump back in. Maika, as we think about while we're doing that, as we go back to just the belief theme for a second, and we think about reflections that we have on it, is one of the statements you made in there is that belief brings energy. And can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I don't know if people go belief equals energy in some ways. Can you talk and explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I like to understand the executing theme around energy. Why is it executing? And I think about working with people with belief, and if they are in a place, usually they can see what the value is of the work that they're doing. But it's even better if it's obvious. So I think about, I worked for quite a long time on our education team, and I still do quite a bit of work with our education clients, looking at K-12 and higher ed. And when I work with our partners on that team who talk about the importance of building great schools, or the importance of the work that they're doing and understanding the way students feel, once they start explaining the science, it's like they're explaining like Marvel Comics. It comes across as a blockbuster. It doesn't come across as science because it's so aligned with what they're doing, and I think there's that beautiful energy that comes from it. And maybe a better word is passion.
Okay. Oh, I like that. This passion and energy. I hadn't thought maybe of those two words being put together, but it certainly passion drives the energy piece. All right. It looks like she's going to try and join us one more time. Abby, if you can jump in here, that would be awesome. Nope, she is gone. So,
but thanks for the wedding picture. That was beautiful.
It is a beautiful picture of, Maika, so we mentioned, so for my wife, Sarah, and I've talked about her all the time, number two with discipline being number one from that standpoint. Now, I am all, I'm all shades of gray, right? For me, there are very few. I'll try anything new. I kind of shift around like the seas. I'm very adaptable, very flexible. The arranger and the activator in me have high action. That's been her belief years ago, 10 years ago, when she first took the StrengthsFinder assessment, and I found that out. That has been something for me, and maybe you, the listeners, you're more like me, and you never understood belief before. Maika, as the shifting sea, and as I look at her anchor, what are some ways I can take advantage of that belief and reinforce it? Can you give me some insights around that? What do you think?
Andrea in the chat says the word purpose, and I think that's really important with belief, and I probably haven't said that enough. Mission, purpose, the reason why you do things, that's what belief is about. And I think about the power and the collaborativeness of you working together with Sarah. So what she probably gives you is some groundedness in, which way are you shifting? not stop shifting, but shift in and flex in a way that feeds your purpose. I think she can probably help you see some of the effect of the work that you're doing, whereas you're really great at jumping in on something that's a great idea, no matter what happens later. And that's a wonderful theme to have, because it gives you that open-mindedness, that ability to bounce back, sort of that resilience. But I think that the belief grounds that and helps you maybe decide where is the most important place for you to bounce to right now. And I know it wasn't the question you asked, but you asked, what do I do with her? What do I do for her? How do I help her? Ask her what she's done that's made a difference. Give her a platform to talk about not just, hey, honey, how was your day, but who did you work with today, and what was the effect of the work that you did today, and tell me a little bit more about how you drove your purpose forward. Also looking for, sometimes people with high belief are very aware of what needs to happen, and they just need that invitation to say it. So they might have that, they do have that radar for what's right and what's wrong, and sometimes they've had to practice keeping that to themselves. Maybe that's picking their battles because they know they're not going to win. Maybe that's understanding that there are times they're going to, rub people the wrong way. I think it's great to give people with belief a platform to really explore what are the right and wrong things that they're noticing. And then you might be able to go do something about it, because you can jump in and not be quite as put off by the core values of it if that isn't something that will affect you.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that played out, she was very involved with our children. They're all mostly adults now, so we're kind of out of that phase. But with our children, in Abby, hang tight. We hear you. Hang tight for me for just one second. She got involved in PTA. She got involved in the leadership of the choir. Anything my kids were involved in, she wanted to be involved in the leadership of it, and I think that was a very, very powerful way for her to display that belief and in action. And then I would help her, so she would join these groups, and then I would come in and help her, work them, whatever she wanted to get done. I could jump in and help her do those things. I was the doer of that once I know what we needed it done, and it was very, very helpful for our children. Having a mom that had high belief really instilled great characteristics into my children. Thank God they took after her and not me in some cases. But that being said, Abby, can you hear us now?
I can. My computer completely decided to stop working, so I'm actually on my phone right now.
Hey, that's
awesome.
It's the best way to do it. To be honest with you, that's the best and easiest way to join us is on your phone.
Well, I wish I'd known that before, because my computer's still freaking out. So
no, that's fine.
I'm here, though.
Great job. We heard belief number 1 for you, and then I asked you the question, how does that play out? And then you cut out. So let's start right there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Come back. What's a practice run? Come back and tell us a little bit about how that plays out for you.
Okay, yeah, belief number 1, did you hear the whole top 5? Or?
We did hear top 5, yes.
Okay. So, yeah, what I had been saying was talking a little bit about kind of the raw to mature that you guys touched on, and also the interplay between belief, harmony, and communication for me. As a child, it feels a little bit hypocritical to say this, but as a child I was judgmental and closed, but it was really judgmental towards the judgmental and intolerant of the intolerant, and it came across as, hey, you're stupid because you're being intolerant, which obviously isn't the best approach to it. But as I've matured and as my theme has matured, I think it really ties in together with the communication and the harmony, and that it's the importance to me of tolerance and of authenticity and of inspiring others to be exactly who they are, and being very tolerant of that, and trying to say, hey, to approach that in a much more gentle and open-minded way, and not judging people for judging, but kind of knowing I've been there too, and I understand where you're coming from, but why don't you look at it from this perspective as well?
Abby, what do you do, and how do you feel like you fit, and have you maximized what you think your top 5 are for the role that you're doing?
I have not today. I have in the past. I previously worked for the YMCA in South Bend, Indiana, and that was definitely fueled my belief and many of my other talents. But my belief has also taken me on a little bit of a journey to in support of my husband and his endeavors, which would be probably some of that sacrificing here. So I'm currently working as an attorney focused on forming and advising not-for-profit and business entities. So I try to pull it in as much as possible in terms of the types of clients that I take on, but I don't know that it's fully maximizing my belief, and I've really been inspired and fallen in love with strengths over the last 5 or 6 months. So I'm in the process of adding on to what I'm doing and working towards considering becoming a strengths coach so that I can fuel my belief and my passion, and so I'm working on it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. If you said becoming a strengths coach, a lot of people are like, how do you do that? Just real quick, if you go to courses.gallup.com, we have all of our courses that are lined out. Many of them lead to a certified strengths coach format. If you have questions for us on the live page there is a contact form. Just send your information and somebody will call you back. That's pretty much the best way to get that done. You can also send an email to certification@gallup.com. So Abby, when you think about, so when you said you're an attorney working on some, in the nonprofit, I would think just on the outside looking in, there would be some great opportunities, especially in the nonprofit space, to do that. What do you think you could do or do differently to continue to tune that radio dial for the job that you're doing?
I think there is potential there, and I think it's a matter of being more conscious, and I've been trying to do this lately, being more conscious of seeing the impact and of making a conscious effort to connect the things that I'm doing to the things that my clients are doing. So it can be easy sometimes in the day-to-day to just think I'm a contract writer, or I'm just working on, it's tough when it's something like a dissolution of a nonprofit that's no longer going to be serving the community. And it really takes a lot to sometimes connect those dots and really maybe even go visit clients and see what they're doing and understand that the nitty-gritty detail that I get into in my work is facilitating them and enabling them to do the work that they do in the community.
Maika, this is a little bit of an unfair question because we don't know Abby all that well. We've been talking to her for about 30 seconds, but there's a question. Dion asked this question in the chat room for both of you, Mike and Abby. What are your favorite ways to challenge people high in belief towards maturity? So Maika, just on the little bit that you've heard as we think about Abby, what are a few little tidbits you might throw in? And then Abby, I'm going to throw that same question to you on yourself. Like you've mentioned maybe a few, but what else would you do? So Maika, what do you think?
I think exactly what you're describing right now, Abby, that ability to really look a little bit deeper in what you're doing and what's the effect? Are you writing a contract, or is that contract going to enable somebody to experience a better life?
Right.
And better reflection, probably closer reflection, maybe even spending some time with your clients, making sure that you're there, what their house looks like, giving yourself exposure to the people side of things, I think would really help grow it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes belief, at least for me, feels like a very all or nothing kind of theme, that there's such a passion and such a purpose behind it that it can be easy to fall into a either or black and white type of thinking, that when I'm passionate about something, I am all in. I want to do everything. I want to be there and do it all. And sometimes it's difficult when it doesn't feel 100%. It can feel like 0%. And I need to remind myself that maybe I'm not the one on the front lines, 100% all in, but that doesn't mean that it's not impactful and it's not meaningful what I'm doing.
Abby, let me ask you a quick question. You feel like you've been doing this long enough that you get to see the end result of some of the work that you are doing? Because sometimes early in the process, especially when things like this might take months or years to play out, you don't really get to see the end result. Do you see that yet? Are you in a place where you get to see the end?
I'm hoping to soon.
Good.
I've been in this role on and off for many years. It's my dad's law firm, so it's the two of us and one other attorney, and so I worked there since high school, and then left for several years, but came back. And some of the clients we were working with 5 or 6 years ago are still trudging through some of the same issues, and we're finally starting to see some results. And so I think that that's starting to provide a little glimmer of hope, because sometimes it does take many years for these types of projects, these long-term projects, to come to fruition. So I think there's hope.
Oh, good. Maika, any other thoughts?
There's so many great ideas in our chat room right now. I'm just trying to respond to a couple of them. But Abby, thank you so much for joining. I think you're this beautiful example of how belief makes you human, and maybe belief helps you make other people more human. So it's gorgeous. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Abby, I also appreciate the fact that you overcame the technology problems that existed and jumped on your phone. You know, it's good. It's a reminder. I will remind folks in the future, hey, the easiest way, maybe just jump in on your phone and get it done. So Abby, thanks for jumping in and joining us. We'll let you drop off as we wrap things up here. Thanks for jumping in. Great to meet you. Maybe when you do the training, you'll do it here in Omaha, and if you do, come make sure you come find me. I'm on campus, so it'd be great to see you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, Abby, thank you. Thanks for jumping in.
Yep.
Mike, any final thoughts as we think about putting a wrap on belief here? How would you wrap it?
You know what? I'm going to wrap it by going to page 2 of our companion guide. So that's where we've got things already filled out for you from the Best of Me exercise that you'll get access to if you take some of our classes. It's about what value do I bring, what characteristics do I have, what role do I play, what are the needs that I have, what are my motivations. And I think just these words, when you think about belief, think about certainty, passion, self-sacrifice, stability, and commitment. And I would just leave it at that. It's a pretty beautiful theme.
Awesome. Maika, I know I've taken you to the very brink because you have something else you need to do, and I've probably got 2 minutes to close things up. So if you want to drop off, you can do that and head over to your next appointment, and I will close things. Will that work? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm going to go teach a class. Yes. So thanks so much, Jim, and thanks everyone for talking about belief. See you next time.
See you, Maika. We'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. Send us your questions or comments. We also, if you'd like to be a guest blogger on our sites, or especially on our coaching site, that's really where we're looking for, coaching.gallup.com. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Put guest blogger in there. We've been getting some great feedback from you guys, and you can kind of try out for that role. About 600 words is what we're looking for, and so if you want to do that as well, coaching@gallup.com. On the coach's site, coaching.gallup.com, all the links to our Facebook group, YouTube page, iTunes, and RSS feeds if you want to listen to this or download it to your phone. iPhone and Android apps are available if you want to get your top 5 on your phone. Best way to do it is through our app. We also look forward to having you look at the schedule for Gallup Weekly Strengths Wisdom. We do these every single week. Command is next. And so if you want to see what's upcoming, again, everything is out there. We mentioned the Theme Thursday shorts. Those are on our YouTube channel. We have a playlist just for those shorts if you want to get them. 34 of those, 8 to 10 minutes long. We're translating those captions now. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. To help us do that, you can contact us. Everything is at coaching.gallup.com. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach, I've been getting that question a lot lately. How exactly do I do this? I mentioned go to courses.gallup.com. Tons of resources for you out there, as well as all of our both our courses that lead to, and some of them don't. Some of them, like our EP10 course, does not currently have a certification around it, but great for entrepreneurs. And so if you want to get some information about the current scheduling for our courses, we have a brand new site, courses.gallup.com. If you found this helpful, and I hope you have, we'd ask you to share it. The great way to get the word out about strengths is to share it on your YouTube page or on your Facebook page. And so if you do that for us, as we produce these links every couple weeks, this one will publish 2 weeks from now or so. We'd love to have you grab that from our strengths, from our coaches blog, and post those around on Facebook. That would be great. I want to thank you for joining us today. We'll look forward to the next Theme Thursday. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.